When we're having those stressful moments, it's like survival mode. It's survival brain. That's why doing mindset only or like affirmation work or anything like that can be a little bit futile, because if we're still in this kind of stress response moment down here from the body, it'll be short-lasting, if anything.
Hey friends, welcome to the Sour Notes podcast, the podcast where musicians get curious about their inner critic, self-doubt, and the darker side of the creative process that we don't often hear about. I'm your host, Roxanne Potvin. I'm a singer-songwriter and a lifetime sufferer of my own inner noise. And every week, I invite artists to share their stories and insights on this somewhat inconvenient reality. Today, I sit down with someone who's been immensely helpful on my own journey to taming the self-critic. Certified Neuro Somatic Coach, Somatic Experiencing Practitioner, and singer, Elise Besler. In this conversation, we delve into what might actually be going on behind those anxiety loops. Hi, Elise.
Hello.
How are you doing?
I'm really well. Happy to be here with you.
Good. Welcome to the Sour Notes podcast. We're very happy that you can join us today. So, can you explain to us, first of all, what somatic voice work is, and how is it different from traditional vocal techniques?
Well, the word somatic means body-based.
Mm-hmm.
And so probably the answer is that it isn't different in that when we use our voices, so when we sing, when we speak, when we're performing, right, it is an embodied experience. And I think like using the word somatic to welcome people into, my orbit just kind of reminds us, or maybe invites other people to acknowledge that we're going to be thinking of the body first.
Mm-hmm.
That all of this operating kind of stuff that happens behind the scenes, our nervous system, our wiring, that's how we make our way through the world. It's through our body first. And so, I like to call my work somatic voice liberation. So it's this opportunity to really allow some freedom through approaching it from the body first.
Absolutely. And you're so right in saying that, this is what we carry through the world, through our life, through our day-to-day. And there's no reason to believe that suddenly that would be turned off just because we pick up an instrument or we try to sing a song, right? Like
especially so. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Especially when we get into some really vulnerable territory, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So you're a musician as well as a voice coach. Can you tell us about how you've struggled with your own inner critic and how you came into this work?
Oh, my heart. I just feel some tenderness, and I appreciate the question because I really actually just on my own podcast last week mentioned that introducing myself as a singer is actually vulnerable for me.
Mm-hmm.
And yet I've been a singer for over 40 years, And so I, so for so long have kind of just identified as a voice coach. I'm the person that helps other people find their voices. And yet there's this part of me that desires so deeply to share, my own voice, my own music, my own writing. And how have I struggled? Well, my own relational kind of traumas and experiences that I've had have really kept me small at times in my life. And so even though I would have these moments, like I recorded my first album when I was in my early 20s, and I had what I would call like moderate success with it, right? I had some pretty high profile gigs for me. They were exciting for me. And I, licensed a couple of tunes for television shows. And there was this like bigness or expansion around my music. And then with trauma, what sometimes happens is when we do get big, there's a little signal in a loop that says, no, we don't do that.
Mm-mm. Danger.
So then we get small. Danger. Yeah. And so for me, after that album, it was about like probably a year and a half into the experience of the album, I stopped singing. I stopped singing for myself. I stopped writing for myself. I obviously sung daily while I was working with other people, but just like being in front of people felt like way too much. And so it was 16 years. And I have goosebumps thinking about it now, because there was a lot of, it felt like protection, right? It felt not fear. There wasn't fear, but it was like I wanted to protect it because it was so important to me. And yeah, and then when I turned 40 that year, my husband said to me, January 1st, my birthday's in September. He said, "Do you want to do a big party for your 40th this year?" And I was like, "Yeah, we're going to release an album." And he's like, "Oh," he's like, "Shit." He's like, "We better get to work then." We have a
Oh,
home studio, right? So then it was like the next 9 months kind of like birthing this next iteration. So yeah, so for me, it was a lot of like holding back, feeling protective of it. Yeah. Not wanting to be judged, not wanting to be criticized. Mhm.
so can you explain what's happening to a person's nervous system when they're going through this, when they're experiencing those feelings?
Yeah. I mean, our nervous system's primary job, I'm going to get a little sciencey
Sure,
for
we
the
love that.
listeners.
Yeah. No, it's true, but because, we can, okay, I'm just gonna like interrupt and say, I think that the perception out there is so much that musicians can just get out there and do it. They're just born with this talent, and there's something mystical about it. There's
Mhm.
something magical about music, and that's true. Like when the connection is happening, it is truly a magical thing. But we are also earthly beings with very active nervous systems, and so I think it's really important to get sciencey,
Yeah.
because there's not a lot of talk in scientific terms, and I that's something I want to dig into in this podcast, just so people get the rational sense also of what's happening.
Mm.
So let's get sciencey.
Yeah,
Yes.
let's get sciencey. So our nervous system's primary job, and we'll say the nervous system is, I mentioned earlier, it's the wiring.
Mhm.
Think of it like a computer operating system. It's always on. It runs in the background. It is subconscious.
Yeah.
We don't really know consciously in our higher thinking what's happening at this level of our body, but it is the operating system of our body. And as much as we work with our mindset, and I do think it is important, I think it's important to work with our thoughts. But if that wiring is like, "Oh, this is not good," like you said earlier, danger, danger, honestly, like it doesn't really matter how much we work with our thoughts,
Mhm.
because that wiring is saying it's not safe. And so you asked what's happening. Our nervous system's primary job is to keep us safe. It's always looking for signals and signs of safety. And if at any moment it receives a kind of cue, like let's say you're on stage. I'll use this example. You're on stage and somebody yawns in the audience,
Mhm.
right? Maybe they're just tired, right? But if our system is on high enough alert, we might take that cue as, "Oh shit, they're bored. I'm doing terribly." And then we'll start spiraling. And raise your hand if you've ever been in that
Y-
situation where
Yeah.
you're prepared, like you're so prepared, but then all of a sudden we see one little cue and then we start going down the rabbit hole,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
And so the science of it, like the way our bodies work, is that when we get those cues, they send signals, and our nervous system and brain talk in signals. They don't talk in language, or the language
Mhm.
is signals, right? And so it's sensation, it's what we see, it's what we feel. And so if that signal, going back to that yawn, is of not safe, danger, danger, then our mind, so the inner critic, the spiraling out, the quote unquote overthinking, are actually outputs of our brain not being able to manage the signal that's coming in,
Right.
right? So our brain is like the manager.
Mhm.
I like to say, like, nervous system is the boss, brain is the manager, or nervous system's the owner, right? And so, yeah, so essentially it's like the inner critic is like an output or a symptom of a nervous system that's not able to regulate. And so regulation just means like being able to see that yawn and go, "Oh, somebody's yawning.
Mhm.
That doesn't mean anything about me.
Right.
I'm going to keep singing. I'm going to keep making my music."
Yeah, and I feel like because full disclosure, I was a client of Elise's last year, and this is how I came upon this knowledge. Right. Well, for most of my life, most therapy was talk therapy,
Mhm.
and most sort of psychological advice out there was very cerebral, was very
Yeah.
sort of thought-based. And when I started understanding more about the body-based approach, it just like opened up this whole new understanding of what's going on.
Mindset is important, but it's not the most important thing, especially when we're trying to kind of floss. One of my teachers says, floss the fact from the physiology. What's true and what's my body telling me is true?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The interesting thing about, just to circle back on that, is to sometimes can be challenging to parse the facts and the physiology,
Yeah.
because what's going on in your body feels very true
Mhm.
because you feel it. You're
Yeah.
like, well, of course that person is laughing at me because that's what it feels like. Of
Mhm.
course that person is yawning because I'm boring because
Mhm.
that's what it feels like,
Yeah.
right? So like that's a tricky one,
Yeah.
So maybe the next stage in that kind of thought process is, okay, I feel it,
Mhm.
but it doesn't mean that my interpretation of that feeling is correct.
Correct. That's the goal. Like that's the end goal, right? It's the idea to be able to go like, I noticed that. What's actually true is this. And then there's all the fuzzy gray stuff in the middle from A to B there, but that I can notice that my body's going to body, it's going to do its thing, and it's going to tell me that something is a little bit of a stressor or something to be alert of. But then I'm also going to be able to zoop, come back into my midline and say, and I still have this really amazing song that I'm going to sing.
Yeah,
And I
right?
still have this tour that I'm planning, and I still have da 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 da, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that my interpretation of this person yawning,
Yeah.
if you tend to sort of interpret negatively, which a
Yeah.
lot of us do,
Yeah.
you just go, yeah, maybe not.
Yeah.
Maybe that's not what
That's
it
right.
is. Maybe
Yeah.
that's not what's going
Yeah.
on. And
Just,
just like
oh,
that little interruption of that negative thought
yeah.
might be enough to be like, oh, right, okay, and back to the song.
My clients and I call it the interrupter clause.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, it's kind of like just like a railway gate, it just comes down. Zoop, nope,
Yeah.
we're not going to continue that. But again, we have to have capacity to be able to do that, right?
Yes.
Yeah. And I just want to say that this is like, it's not just like Elise's opinion.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
hard science, right? And because I know that it's different, like for a lot of folks, especially when I first start working with people, in my studio, when I first start working with folks, it can be like like it's just a little bit, it's different, right? It's different than how we're kind of conditioned to
Mhm.
believe, we can work through our challenges with stage fright, with, fear of showing up, visibility, et cetera. Yeah.
So, talking specifically about feeling safe in our body, because really that's what it comes down to. It's like the feeling of tension, of nerves, or of dissociation,
Yeah.
or shortness of breath. It's a signal that there's a lack of safety, and we hear about that as you don't feel safe in your own body,
Yeah.
basically. So how can someone identify that they don't feel safe in their own body? Like
Mm.
if it's the first time somebody has ever heard of this concept, what are some of the telltale signs?
I think probably one of the biggest ones is that feeling of insecurity.
Mhm.
So, like, can I be in front of other people or in relationship with other people? And so one might say that when we're on stage, we are in relationship with the audience. Or even, with our partners or with our parents or with friends, like, just like, can we be in ourselves? And I can't remember if you and I did this exercise, but there's an exercise that I love to do that really has us tap into our length. So like, can
Yes.
we be in our highest height, like physically in our body, in our highest selves, in our highest dignity, and be in relationship with other people?
Right. Stand tall in our fullness. Yeah.
Exactly. And then also, like, no matter kind of what comes our way, right?
Right.
So again, if somebody yawns, can I still stay in my dignity? Can I still stay standing tall? Or that feeling of insecurity often comes along with like a folding forward or feeling like we need to, I'm for the listeners, I'm wrapping my arms around, like, really protecting ourselves by kind of covering up our organs, our life center. So that to me would be like a kind of like a dissociative kind of like, collapsing kind of state.
Yeah.
And then another one would be like that you wanna run, can I swear on the
Oh, yeah,
podcast? Yeah.
full on.
Run the fuck away, right?
Right.
It's like that feeling of like, "This is not safe. Get me the fuck out of here." That's the flight response, right? So that's part of the nervous system's natural response too of like, "This isn't safe." So we've got collapsing, feeling like we need to protect ourselves. We've got running away. And then there's also that feeling of like fight, right? So there's this like, I don't know if this has ever happened to you when you're performing, but when you are nervous and you just kind of like something overrides it and you like, it almost feels like you're like over giving, like it's
Yeah.
like overdrive. And then maybe your throat gets a little raspy because you're singing harder than you would have, typically, or your fingers feel sore because you're really beating the guitar, right? So that would be like the fight state. So those are like three kind of, you know, examples. But then there's also the other one, which is one I'm really familiar with, which is the fawn state. And that's the like feeling like you need to really like people please, right?
Be
And I
super nice
yeah,
and, yeah, be your best,
smile a
funniest.
lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly. And comedy, like self-deprecation, all of those sorts
Yeah.
of things. In between, you're tuning your guitar and like, okay, so we're musicians, we tune our guitars, but do we make jokes about it or can we just tune our guitar and let it be that that's what I do as a musician, right? So again, no judgment on that, but those are some signals. Yeah.
They're just like natural reactions
That's
of
right.
like, oh, because the thought behind that would be, oh, this is so boring for people. Or, you start to like judge yourself for
I
doing
think
the
I'm
thing.
not professional because I have to tune my guitar in the
Yeah.
middle
Yeah.
of yeah. Mhm.
Yeah. It's funny how those go so hand in hand, like
Yeah.
the discomfort you feel and the thought that goes with it.
Yeah.
So what are some tips like in the moment where that's going on when you're in the middle of a show or in the middle of a song and what can you do in that moment to catch yourself?
What a great question. If you ever find out, let me know.
Right.
In the moment, it's like that's the threat response is happening, right? And
Yeah.
so the last thing that our brain wants in that moment is another tool because it's just going to kind of throw it to the side anyway, right? Because really we're in survival mode at that point.
Totally. Yeah.
But I will say it's not that we can't, get our druthers in the moment, but I will say that like the most, and you and I kind of talked about this when we were working together, that the power of this work of working somatically, like with your body, with your nervous system, is that the training happens outside of the stressful moments.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So the training happens like it's like I'm going to use like a hockey analogy since we're Canadian. Might as well. So like
Sure.
hockey players do push-ups and squats and lunges off ice, but they don't go on the ice and do squats and push-ups and lunges. They go and play the game, right?
Right.
And so we can think of it as like a little training ground or like an opportunity to build capacity, which is really what we're talking about outside. So when we're not feeling stressed, when our inner critic isn't spinning, we're building resiliency and we're building capacity then so that when we're on stage, and I'll go back to the yawn and we see the yawn or we see somebody roll their eyes because maybe they have
Yeah.
an eyelash in their eye, we can go, that thing happened. I'm going to notice that my system said, whoop, alert, alert. But then I'm going to be able to go back into the task at hand, which is expressing this soul's work.
So very important to train that muscle off
Yeah.
stage, basically.
Same as, so guitar players, singers, pianists, drummers, what do they say? 10,000 hours.
Yeah.
Right? So once you put in that work, like you get that muscle memory going, you can be on stage, you can sing and play at the same time. Once we get all of those muscle memories happening, we can do the thing. And so nervous system care, it's no different. It's no different in that way. Mhm.
Can you walk us through a practice or an exercise that you might use with a client to help them reconnect with their body and voice before a performance or before
Yeah.
rehearsing? Because for me personally, it happened as much in rehearsal as it did in performance. Like for me,
Yeah.
even when I picked up a guitar at home by myself, the inner critic would get going, right? Like
Yes.
immediately. So
Yeah.
this is not just a performance problem. We could literally follow you everywhere you go.
Right. And I always say too, when I work with, I work with clients, my clients have lovingly dubbed me the stage fright whisperer.
Ah, I love it.
And even though I do work with people who are getting on stages and, public speakers as well as performers, and they say that it does kind of move through, it like trickles down into every part of your life. So it could be if you have to have a hard conversation with your partner, or you have to set a boundary with your mother-in-law, or like whatever it is, like that stage fright like kind of experience shows up in all parts of our lives, right? So
Sure.
yeah, so I'm with you. So I'll kind of maybe do, which one was your favorite? Do you remember which one was your favorite? Because
Oh, I still use a bunch of them, but like the pinching the eyebrow and pinching the
yes.
crunchy part of the ear and pressing down below your collarbone, like
Yes.
those little manipulations of the body just
Yeah.
like gave me anyway an immediate sense of relief where I just feel like my shoulders kind of fall and I kind of start
Yes.
yawning, and
Yeah.
it's just such a nice feeling to be like, oh
Mm.
my god, like I can activate my yawn response, and then it
Mhm.
just you just immediately feel your body sort of like it's like taking it down a notch, you know?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
your body's buzzing up here, and then you do
Mhm.
those exercise, it
Yes.
just turns a switch and takes you down a notch, you know?
Oh, so good. Okay, so I'm gonna do two. I'm gonna do
Okay.
two because I think of the folks who are listening who, oftentimes when performance is involved, it's up energy, right?
Sure,
So it's
yeah.
like more anxious style energy. We think about those butterflies we get, the heart pump, the heart racing before we get on stage. May not mean fear, but it's our body's saying like, "Oh, there might be bears out there," right?
Yeah.
So you mentioned the eyebrow one. I think that one is actually a beautiful one for us to do. So for the listeners, and a good reminder for, for you and I like to remind myself of this too. The nervous system prioritizes, if we are sighted people, if we are visual people, our nervous system prioritizes what we see first, that's how we take our biggest cues. And so when we work with these nerves that run through down to our eyes, it's like you said, it's an immediate drop. So this one's great. Okay, so for everyone listening, just take the outer third of your eyebrow and kind of pinch the tissue. So it would be, and I know I'm aging myself here, but it would be like as if you had an eyebrow ring.
I was gonna say,
I'm
that's where your eyebrow ring would be.
I'm speaking to the Gen Xers because I think like that's like all of us, we all had eyebrow rings, right?
Teens in the '90s, yes.
That's right, yeah. So and now because you see scars, right? Everyone has a
Yeah.
scar where the eyebrow is. So yeah, if you just pinch that really gently, and we're not looking for like a ton of pressure here,
Yeah, no
but
pain.
just a little pinch. And then all we're gonna do is sort of, and my eyes are closing now that I'm doing it, just kind of circle that tissue around. And it's kind of like where there's a nerve that runs right through from your brain directly towards your eye. And all we're doing here is we're down regulating that and taking some of that anxious energy away. And then we'll add in the breath. So we'll breathe in and then breathe out through pursed lips. And then we'll do it once more. Breathe in and out. Good. And then you can stop and just notice. What was that like? Right? And remember I mentioned the awareness is key. It's also key here. Like, oh yeah, no, I do feel like my system has shifted, right? And
Mhm.
so for our listeners, you'll do both sides because we had two sides. So you would do both sides and notice a shift. if there is a shift in the baseline. That one's a pretty high payoff for a lot of people, especially for those who are working with inner critic. Because think about it, it's like how you see yourself. And so I'm kind of broadening out here. I'm going out to a bigger picture here. But like if we're working with our visual nerves, our cranial nerves that support our vision, maybe we can see ourselves differently, right? And then I think about our dissociative folks. I think about the people who collapse even after performance. Like, I don't know if this has ever happened to you, like where like maybe you felt like you had to be on and you were
big time.
even kind of like overriding with that fawning, like, I'm just going to push through. And then afterwards you're like, oh my gosh,
this is
yeah.
me.
Hi. I would say I'm mostly made of push through. Yeah. Yeah. And then so afterwards, what may happen, and I know I've had experience with this where it just is like my whole system just needs to, it's like a, right? It's a system shutdown.
Shut down.
And so in that case, and this is for those who actually freeze or dissociate before you perform as well, this could be really great. So just take one hand. I don't think you and I ever did this one.
I
It's a great one.
don't know that we did this one. No.
Underneath, so it's like between your chest wall and your armpit. And so just like kind of squeeze. So you're wrapping one arm around yourself. And then, whoops, I'm dumping everything over here on my, got excited. And then just squeeze the other arm around you. So basically you're giving yourself a self hug.
Oh, I love that.
Right? And it's like really tight though. It's like a tight squeeze. And then you're just going to rock from side to side. So you can sort of turn as though you're like, I don't know, dancing with yourself or even rock from side to
Rocking
side.
a little baby.
That's right.
Yeah.
And this tells our system that, first of all, because that compression is there, it's like, no, you're alive, you're good, and you are safe, right? And so those are two exercises, just one's for like the more anxious energy and one's for the more collapsed energy.
Right.
But there's lots of them.
Yeah,
There's
yeah.
lots
No,
of them.
it's great, and it's so helpful because we're so used to associating anxiety with a brain manifestation, like because we interpret it in thought. But it's so great to realize that what's going on is actually in your body.
That's right.
Most of all in your body. And so for me, learning that and then being able to go straight to the source of the anxiety and soothe that first. And you'll notice for the people listening, if you start working with this, that it automatically also calms your racing thoughts.
Yes.
Because you've suddenly soothed yourself. You've reassured yourself. You've taken care of yourself. Yeah. And so your brain doesn't have to go in this overloaded state.
Exactly. It's that signal piece that we talked about a little bit earlier. Like if we can change the quality, we'll say the quality of the signal coming into your brain from your body so that it's of safety, so that it's of like, well, actually I'm looking around me here. Like we're actually okay. There's no bears running after me. If we can change that signal so that your brain receives it as like not such a big deal, then it won't start to make meaning and spiral out. And I also just want to say, there is no judgment on that inner critic piece. There's no judgment on that self-sabotage because that's really freaking wise. That's your body and brain doing exactly what they're meant to do. Yeah.
Right. Because I've struggled with anxiety my whole life, and I'm just now sort of understanding in the last few years how to work with my own nervous system. Yeah. What ended up happening is that because anxiety was uncomfortable and obviously scary, and you start to sort of make everything smaller to not be activated, right?
Yeah.
I was like, if I'm activated, there's something wrong. But that is not necessarily the truth. If you're easily activated, it just means that you have to learn how to work with that instead of trying to protect yourself all the time, because self-protection can become a problem, like in our life. If you want a full life, if you don't feel safety in like relatively safe situations, it becomes a maladaptive thing where it impedes on your life and your ability to be a full person and to grow as a person, right?
Mhm.
So I guess what I want to say is that, and you've told me this before, the goal is not to be calm all the time,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And I think my misinterpretation for many years was that I need to be calm, because if I'm not calm, I'm anxious, and being anxious is uncomfortable, and I don't want that, you
Yeah.
know? But
Yeah.
then you also don't grow your capacity to handle stressful situations,
Yeah.
or to handle triggers, or to handle anxiety. It's part of life, and especially if you're a super sensitive person, which I think most creative people are, you are going to be activated. Like, that's just going to happen, right? So the
Yeah.
idea is to find ways to work with yourself and to be kind to yourself,
Mm.
And so I don't know if you want to kind of.
I love that. I think you really nailed a few really important points there. First of all, activation, it means you're alive.
Right.
You know, it really does. It means you're alive. And even nerves, even like being nervous before performances, a lot of performers might interpret that as they're like as something's wrong, right? Or it's bad because I'm nervous. And the answer is no, like your body is doing its thing. It's like doing what it's built to do. And so that piece around calmness as being the goal, that is what I was talking about earlier. There's so much um, talk about nervous system right now in the world and people using it as marketing tools. Talking about that, like, oh, be calm when you la la la, be calm, approach this with calm, right? And that's just, capitalism bullshit. But the truth is that a regulated nervous system is not calm all the time.
Right.
A regulated nervous system, you can think of it as like a wave, like I'm doing like a wave sign with my hand. So up and down and up and down. And you can move through those states of stress and those states of calm with more ease.
Yep.
But it doesn't mean that you're calm all the time. If you're calm all of the time, if somebody's calm all the time, like I would be like suspicious of that, right?
They might just be shut down,
They might just be shut down, right?
Right.
They might just be dissociating,
Right.
right? Or bypassing for protection, right? And again, it's real. It's a real thing, right? So I think just to like let everybody know that's listening that when you do have those moments that even the spirals, I had a spiral last week. I've been doing this. I've been working with my nervous system for 11 years now. And I had this spiral that was like young. I was 13 again. I was like acting like I was like projecting and like pushing everything. And you know what? It happens. It happens because even though like those wounds, that we have, those experiences in our lives, they're real. And there's a reason why our bodies have organized around to protect us from those, right?
But that's the tricky thing with the nervous system, is that it doesn't distinguish between what happened to you back then and what's going on now. It's just like,
That's right.
there's that thing again. Burr, burr,
There it
burr,
is. Yeah.
so that's to reiterate the importance of learning how to, I call it learning how the machine works.
Yes.
I'm just learning how the
Yes.
machine works.
And I think like forever, right? Like I think with this work, it's similar to music. I also work with my voice clients. It's like, when will I get to the point where I'm like, my voice is what it's going to be? And I'm like, oh, but like we're ever changing, like, especially when it comes to instrumentation, especially when it comes to, learning about our art and our creativity. It's like, that's what inspires us, right? But we're forever changing and our instruments are, and so are our bodies, because literally physiologically they are, right?
Yeah, yeah.
You mentioned something about, I can't remember what you said, but it made me think of sharing another little sciencey moment, which is that we have something in our brain called neurotags. And
Okay,
it's
yeah.
like literally, like for me last week, what happened was that old tag, which was the protective loop, it got tapped. It was like, tag, you're it, bitch. Like
Yeah,
you're in
yeah.
now,
Yeah.
And so what we're doing with this training, quote unquote, is that we're learning how to like just like complete that stress cycle, complete that loop in a different way, so that there's a different response. Again, not so that there's not activation ever, but so that we don't let it, I always say, so that we don't let it drive the bus.
Right. Okay. Can you explain a little bit about the loop? Like, how do you complete that loop? Like, what does that mean? Like, what does that look like?
Yeah, really, really good question. So again, this is where the rewiring, we'll call it, comes in handy. So that exercise we did with the eyebrow, not only did it feel nice, hopefully for us when we did it, or for the listeners, but it's also teaching that nerve, the cranial nerve that comes down to our eye, right? That it doesn't have to perceive things as threatening as it does. And so when I talk about completing the loop, it's like those, we call them stress responses or stress cycles. Some people call them trauma responses. Um, when we have a different signal, then the brain can make different meaning of it. So that's what that means. And so the tag may happen, boop, boop, boop. Like for me last week, I spiraled, but it took me a quarter of the time to come back from it,
Right.
as maybe it would have 6 years ago, right?
Because you were able to like do the loop just once instead of doing it like 35, 40, 60 times. Is that the idea?
And when you think
Right.
about like quote unquote spinning out, or like when the inner critic is like yeah, 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 just like constantly going and going and going, that's a loop, right? We could consider that a loop, right? And so did I have those moments? Yes. But it was like, zoop, and then I was like, what are my resources? It turns out I wrote a song, right? It's like, oh, like use the resource, use the thing that is actually really regulating for you.
So the tools are helpful to shorten the time that you spend in that activation, in that, and also you're able to make better decisions.
Yeah.
Because so when you are activated, your rational brain tends to go offline as well,
Yeah.
right? So
it's that executive functioning is like, no. And that's why I said earlier, I was like, oh, let me know if you ever figure out what to do in the moment, because
for me, I don't even think of those things. When I'm
yeah,
in activation mode, it's
yeah,
like the whatever like mental tools
yeah,
that I might have like written down, I don't even think to go and look at
yeah,
them. You know what I
yeah.
mean? Like,
And if somebody says to you, hey, have you thought about what do you want? You want to be like, like,
yeah,
no, that's the last thing I want. Leave me
yeah.
alone, right? Like, do not suggest anything to me because I don't have capacity for it.
How would voice work become a path to not just better singing, but to healing and self-trust?
I believe that our voice is our greatest healer. I believe that it's like, like a lot of folks will go to sound healing. I love a good gong bath or like a good crystal bowl session. And it's powerful because we know that sound moves, it vibrates that which is around it at the same frequency. And that's what's so powerful about it. But our voice itself, it's like we're our own sound healer.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And and I think it is the medicine. It is the medicine. And it's like a lot of people are like, okay, well, what kind of like affirmations can you give me to make my voice? Or what can I do a meditation that will help me with my voice? And I'm like, yes, and let's use it. Let's actually use it. And then the other really cool thing is that using our voice is regulating for our nervous system.
Yeah. So how does that work? Can you explain the physiology of that?
Yeah. We have a really important bundle of nerves in our body called the vagus nerve, and it's responsible actually for that wave, the moving between stress and calm more easily. It's the queen bee. It's like the Beyonce
Yeah.
of
Of the
the
nervous
nerves.
system.
It's like, it's the queen bee. And so it's a bundle of nerves that literally starts at the base of our neck and it goes down between our jaw and our neck muscles to our vocal cords. And then it loops down to our heart. Are you ready for it? And then it loops back up to our vocal cords.
There's a connection there.
Yeah. It's such a connection. Like why it's so hard to speak your truth, why it's so hard to sing like something that's like really tender, But then also there's branches of this that go down and it's responsible for our breathing, our heart rate, our digestion. It goes all the way down to our pelvic floor. And so when we sing, we vibrate that whole complex.
Mm-hmm.
And so like a lot of times people will say, oh, they'll come to their session or I meet with them online and they're like, I feel so much better now that we sang. Or like they'll go to like a group singing experience and they'll come out and they'll feel euphoric. It's not it's not
by accident.
no, it actually is. There has been a state change in your nervous system. And so that euphoria is dopamine, right? It's serotonin. It's like all of these feel good hormones are activated through singing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
It's medicine. I believe that it is.
It really is. And no wonder it's been used in cultures from, the dawn of humanity. I mean, singing is a central part of all cultures, basically.
That's right.
Pretty much.
Yeah. Connection, being with others, community.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's something about, if we want to get a little spiritual, but I'd be curious to find a sciencey explanation for if there is such a thing, for the connection that happens between human beings, when someone is singing or when people are singing together. When an artist sings and they can feel that they're connecting, what is actually going on there? Like it's a vibrational energy. Like, if we want to get a little woo-woo and talk about energies and stuff, I'm just throwing that out there. But
I'm here for the woo. Look at that big crystal I have behind me. I mean, she's watching over me. Her name is Verity. She speaks the truth.
I love it.
I'm here for the woo. Yeah. Can I share something?
Sure.
When you mentioned something already about the vibration. So in physics, it's called the theory of entrainment. And so like everything that's in like, say the proximity of a sound wave is vibrating at the same frequency as that sound wave. This is where the woo, and it's cool shit. I think it's cool shit. I have goosebumps just thinking about it before I even say it. So if I were to sing in your presence or in the presence of other people, my voice, the sound waves are actually moving your flesh and bone.
Oh, wow.
Right. And if we sing together, so think about like going to a show or being on stage in a show when people are like singing along with you, or you go to like a big, like a stadium show. I'm thinking like a big rock show or a big, and you look around. I don't know if you've ever done this, but looked around and you can see like the lighting on the stage just illuminates the whole audience enough that you recognize that you're in this community of people that are like, have a like mind and are all there for the same purpose and singing together, like tens of thousands of people. That is also moving your flesh and bone.
That's one of my favorite things in the world. And that's one of the most moving things I find, is that it really feels like suddenly we're all connected, literally, and everything's okay. Talk about a sense of safety, like those moments.
About it.
Ooh,
I am just covered in goosebumps.
No, that's really awesome. And I'm super fascinated about that, why that happens, how that happens, and the performers that are able to make that happen. To me, it's one of the most powerful things a human being can do. Like,
agreed.
It's awesome. Yeah. I just want to bounce back on the self-trust piece real quick, because I just want to share that for me, the experience of learning to work with my nervous system, one of the main positives of it has been to feel that I now had more agency over my own body, my own reactions, my emotions, my state, because sometimes you get into an anxiety loop, and there you are on the couch for the entire day.
That's right.
And you have not been able to do anything.
Yeah.
So to me, self-trust has been a huge positive consequence of doing nervous system work. So I just want to put that out there, like how meaningful it really can be, because it all starts with self-trust, right? To operate in the world, self-trust is kind of the number one component,
Well, and how can we feel safe inside of ourselves? Like, how can we find that safety inside of ourselves if we don't trust ourselves?
Exactly.
And I also just wanted to say to the listeners, some of those days when we're on the couch, I just want to say, like, that is also healing. And that is also so important to listen to, right? I mean, obviously if it's, it interrupts our lives, that's when we're talking about the work that we're talking about.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, let's get some tools to work with that. But oftentimes my clients will say, like, I had a day where I just couldn't get out of bed, or, I really hadn't. And I just want to say, like, honor those parts of yourself too. Because that right there is information. That's also information for us. It's like capacity. Like, do I want to push through this, or do I want to listen to my body right now? And do I want to lay in bed, put my weighted blanket on me, my sound reducing, my noise reducing headphones, and just like be with my cat or my dog, like just co-regulate with the
No,
with
that's
those
a good point.
Yeah.
I think it's important, though, in those moments to also be aware, though, are you in shutdown mode or are you in healing mode? Because like sometimes the being a couch potato can also be filled with really harsh guilt trips and saying bad things about ourselves, that we're lazy and we're useless, and so just being able to differentiate between those two states, I think, is also a good thing to be aware of, because if you're on the couch just like berating yourself, that's probably not gonna make you feel too good at the end of the day.
Well, and then we talk a little bit about capacity, right? To even know that, like, to how do I even know that, because maybe that beratement is just such a common experience that it loops and loops. So I agree with you. Yeah, it's like, it's those moments. And I think that's what this work does, is it allows us to, I said this word earlier, have capacity to be able to say, oh, I'm dissociating. I'm shutting down. I'm berating myself again. I'm spiraling.
Yeah.
Can I use one of my tools, right, to bring myself back up out of that?
I would couple doing, the nervous system calming exercise, but also the kindness to oneself in interrupting that loop, right? You just go, okay, nope, we're going to be nice to ourselves today. And that's where the hug, I find, is useful too. And you just kind of just take a minute, just be nice to yourself, and that is like a thought thing, but I think it's a helpful thought thing, because like just being shitty to yourself is just not going to help, it just doesn't.
That's right. It's hard. It is challenging.
Yeah. But the nervous system exercises do help to calm that part of it too. If you could talk to a younger version of yourself, what would you tell them about self-doubt, the inner critic, and what you've learned over the years?
Wow. What a great question. Oh, it's interesting, because that experience I had last week really allowed me to see her again for the first time from a different point of view. I would say, I believe you. I would say, you're right. Your experience is valid. And I would say that you don't have to try so hard. That all of that people pleasing that you've done your entire life was maybe necessary at one point, but eventually you're gonna discover that you can trust yourself. Yeah. And keep fucking singing, girl. Like, keep singing. Like, sing, share your voice. Like,
Yeah.
this is the piece, right?
Yeah.
That's, I think, the most important thing that I would say to her. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you so much, Elise. It's been such an enlightening conversation, and I think it's going to be very useful.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me, and thank you to your listeners for being here and taking all of this in. I appreciate it.
Okay, take care. That's it for today's episode of Sour Notes. Huge thanks to Elise Besler for sharing with us. You'll find all links to our guests in the show notes. If this episode resonated with you, you can follow us on Instagram at SourNotesPod. And don't forget to leave a review. It helps more musicians find the show. See you next time. Sour Notes is a Flipped Canoe production, editing by me, Roxanne Putbay.